The Ducks got out the old corkscrews and popped one off in our Spartans. It was not a good time. You're listening to Can't Read, Can't Write. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Can't Read, Can't Write, the podcast that proves Spartans can talk. I'm Mike Jones, joined as always by the boy who's so pleased to have Daddy back, Kevin Grech, actually. Adding parenthetically, what, Grech?
Yes, if there was any question, that is a gay joke that was just made. So let's remove.
You want to just double down and use your hall pass right now?
Are you feedback that I was given this week was that we should be clearer when we're trying the listener Mike Jones drinks.
Yes.
And he gave us number 29 this week, and he told us that he's giving it to us this week specifically because Plum's not here, and that It was a little sus, which I would like to think means that it might have a little edge to it that I'm going to need talking about this game.
He also told us, as we asked, as we're about ready to record, that this should be chilled. And so we're drinking it. I'm drinking it with a large ice cube.
Oh, it's
really
syrupy, fruity. Oh, what is it? What is it?
Maybe mine got a little watered down, but it tastes like a Sprite.
This tastes like...
Okay. Sunhari yogurt?
What?
I gotta look this up. I'm a fan.
This tastes like when a popsicle melts and you're like, I'm just gonna drink the popsicle juice. That's what I'm getting off of this.
Yeah, it's a soju that I'm into it.
I don't know what a soju is. What's a soju?
It's a Korean, right? Or is it Japanese?
Oh, okay.
It's a clear and colorless distilled alcoholic beverage traditionally made from rice, but later from other grains, and has flavor similar to vodka.
I guess it does have
bit of a... Korean.
It's got a bit of a derived from rice, like a sake type of taste to it, but it's definitely way sweeter than that.
That's the yogurt you're getting, and I personally find this delightful. So either you're gonna use this to get through our conversation, or you're gonna use it to get you in the right headspace to relive the game.
Yeah.
But before we dig into the show, we of course want to thank everyone for listening. And if we could ask a small favor, please share the pod with Spartans in your life. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_pod. And if you haven't, check us out on YouTube, again, at Spartan_pod. Like, subscribe, all that other good stuff. It really means a lot, and it helps others find the show. So take the time if you have a second. Grech, what are we going to cover? Tell listeners about the structure of our little show.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to talk about this game against the Oregon Ducks, and we're going to do so behind the green wall where football always leads. But there's also good news in Michigan State sports. We'll also cover the women's soccer team that continues to roll a little bit, including over the Wolverines this week. Hockey that went on the road to the Yoop and brought home some wins. And then also it was Midnight Madness and the Media Day. So we have some basketball stuff to talk about. Then we'll take your Twitter questions.
All right. Let's dive into it. And yes, we're going to start behind the green wall where football always leads. So MSU heads to Oregon, and I think if last week we could say that the scoreboard didn't tell the story of the game because MSU was more competitive than the score let on,
Yeah.
This week, the scoreboard also did not tell the story of the game, where it
But
seems that MSU was more competitive than it actually was.
right.
So MSU loses 31-10 at Oregon. I think it's
Covers.
which people were definitely not mad about online. And, I think it's important context that this is our first West Coast trip. It was on 6 days rest, having just played, hot take, I think the second best team in the league. I think Oregon might be better. But either way, despite the score, it was ugly.
Yeah. It was a disheartening game, and it was unlike the Ohio State game, which I would say we got into the third period before the wheels kind of fell off. We were minutes into the second when the wheels started to fall off in this game. I think we did okay through the first 10. There was, of course, the Aiden Childs fumble, put it on the ground, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But then just inability to stop them. Something that we thought was a strength of the defense or of the team, really, was stopping the run game. Stout up front. They gashed our guys time and time and time again. So real bummer of a game is what I would say.
Yeah, I think as it relates to the run, because it was a bit surprising. It is, again, one of those things that I think it's fair to ask, if the game against Ohio State and Oregon are reversed, what's that look and feel like against Oregon? But I think maybe a bigger deal is our old friend, number 27, Cal Halliday, got a lot of flack online. He was bad in coverage and not great in tackling in space either. The running back who looks fantastic. But I wonder how much of that is Jordan Hall did not play in this game.
Right.
And
definitely hurt.
Yeah, how much is now Cal Halliday being asked to do like he was last year? And all the reasons, I think, it might have been 2 weeks ago that I said, like, hey, we haven't been talking shit about Cal because he's not been put in positions where to do what he's not able to do. And I think he might have been in that position this game.
Yeah. We've really not had a whole ton to say about the defense until now. Really, this is the game that exposed the deficiencies on that side of the ball. But I also couldn't be that upset with them because they spent literally the entire game on the field. Or I guess I should say literally like 70% of the game on the field. I think we only had like 31 plays from scrimmage on offense, and then the rest of the entire game was just them trying to keep up with Oregon. And that's not fair to ask of any defense, much less one that is not very deep and the holes for which can be exposed pretty easily. But 2 big interceptions, thank God, because imagine what we would be saying about this game if there weren't those red zone interceptions. Like maybe the team wouldn't have even come back from Eugene. Maybe they would have all just walked into the woods single file and we never would have heard from them again. But yeah, it was a disheartening game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and I think just as a quick clarification, because technically there were 52 plays on offense from Michigan State, but plays in which Aiden Childs was likely in the game, it is pretty close to that 30-some number. Right?
Plays that matter, I guess, then. Plays before we threw in the towel.
Yeah. Which I want to circle back to that in a little bit. But the offense or the defense did hold Oregon to 1.5 yards per carry in the second half. Query how much of that is distorted by end of game numbers. They did make some halftime adjustments, clearly, though. So I don't, and look, like Oregon's a loaded team.
Yeah.
I think if you told me that that Oregon was gonna score 31 points, I'd say, well, that's a number that a team would be happy with.
Yeah.
I don't know that our team would, but like that's a
Our team
perfectly
can't
reasonable
win.
number to say if you're Ohio State and you're holding Oregon to 31 points, you're like, well, we might win that.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good shot, actually.
Right. Yeah. It just isn't, unfortunately, the case with Michigan State. So I think that sort of, I don't particularly have this was clearly the worst defensive performance we've had, but I have a hard time saying that they were bad, right? Like,
Right.
they did what they needed to do to keep us in a place to be competitive with Oregon. If
Yeah.
we, I don't think it's fair to expect them to be a top 5 defense in the country, particularly when you're having to play that many snaps. So let's start with the quarterback, because I think it's clear we've been seeing growth out of Aiden Childs. Didn't see poor decision making in this game as it relates to like what receivers he was targeting. You saw him take sacks more often instead of doing something stupid, which
Instead of turning the ball over, which I guess is growth. That's growth.
I mean, it is like that is literally growth, right? So, and you saw at least 2 instances where he made plays that are the kind of, actually there were probably 3 passes that I would describe as like NFL worthy passes in this game, one of which Deron Glover just dropped.
Yeah.
Which, Aiden Childs can't control that. He put the ball where he was supposed to. It was a great pass. Made a nice strike to Nick Marsh, and then threw another one to Glover, I believe, like 15 yards downfield opposite hash, right? Like, I mean, so that's a 40-yard throw. There are things that are getting better about Childs, but fumbles the ball inside the red zone in a moment that would have put Michigan State up to start the game.
Yeah. And again, at a time where he had other opportunities, that wasn't third down. He didn't need to go all hero mode. But I also, not to spoil your parade right now, I have a hard time really focusing on Aiden Childs because to me, the offensive line is the entire story of the offensive side of the ball. Like Kyron Lynch-Adams and Nate Carter couldn't do anything. Like they were getting hit at the line of scrimmage at the latest. Aiden Childs at times running around for his life back there, took a number of sacks. How many sacks did he end up taking? Like, I mean, it was bad. And that's not even counting hurries.
3, 4, 5 sacks in the game.
5 sacks. My word. I mean, I think Jonathan Smith in the press conference, what did he say? The line of scrimmage was not to our advantage. And that is the understatement of his entire career,
football.
Perhaps. Yeah. Yes. Like it was just, that was the, not the full difference in the game, but it was so evident that this offensive line just doesn't have the talent, doesn't have the experience right now. I mean, they were getting pushed back all the time. Tight ends weren't doing what they needed to do. It was rough. I mean, the lines were the story of this game on both offense and defense.
Yeah, you bring up the tight ends. Michael Masunis did not play in this game. Who, of the young tight ends, is the between him and Parachek is the better blocker right now. And so I think that hurt in this game. I don't like. I have a really hard time with this because we're starting 2 redshirt freshmen or a true freshman at the tackles, or at least that's who's getting reps there.
Right. That's who's spending time there.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to be better. It needs to be better, but you're going up against what is now a top 3 team in the country. Like, what would you expect?
Yep.
Right. And which I think maybe leads me to my next point, which is that I think from a play calling perspective, this was the worst game that Brian Lindgren has called by a fair margin. And it showed up in 2 ways. One is, no matter how well those young tackles might have acquitted themselves, and they weren't like, they weren't a turnstile. They just weren't there, right? Like they weren't up to it and couldn't get a run going. And so it seems to me that there's 2 ways that he could have and should have counteracted that. And we saw a little bit of it in the second half. One is, you do have a quarterback who can run. And if you choose to make offense on defense 11 on 11, you might open some things up a bit.
Because football's a numbers game, you guys.
We saw Aiden Childs in the second half.
Wouldn't we be complaining here if the staff asked Aiden Childs, who already put the ball on the deck once in this game, to do more in the run game? Wouldn't we be criticizing them for that?
No, I'd be criticizing Aiden Childs for not holding on to the ball.
Gotcha.
Like, because you didn't let me finish this, but remember when in 2015 when LJ Scott reached across the plane in the Big Ten championship game to beat
against Iowa.
Yeah. And I think he was asked about it after the fact and talked about how he was like, I'm going to get in so much trouble because you don't do that. Like like the thing about the Aiden Childs fumble was that getting sloppy with the ball, it's not as if he hasn't been coached literally his entire football life.
Yeah.
To hold the ball the right way. Like this isn't new. This isn't reading coverages. This is a truly peewee football fundamental skill. So like, but
at the same time, dudes are bigger, faster, stronger now than he used to dominate in high school, and none of it mattered.
I don't care
back then.
I don't care. This isn't new coaching, and so I'm not on anyone who's like bench Aiden Childs. I think you're insane. But if you're fully carrying water for him as like, oh, he's so young, no, miss me with that too, because he's not new to football. Anyway. So I would have had
Tommy Schuster was 5 for 5. So if you're on the bench Aiden Childs strand, like you got some things, you got some evidence that you can bring to the table. Anyway, continue.
But the other thing is, if you can't run the ball, do it via the pass game. Mm-hmm. And like screen passes, right? Run trips, wide receivers, dude in the backfield or behind the line, not in the backfield, but like get the ball moving out in space and use that as a run, as in lieu of your run. We didn't really see that. And particularly when you've got 2 tight ends in Parachek and Velling that you can split out, who are capable of that. That's 2 big dudes that you can put out wide to block for someone like Jerron Glover or Nick Marsh. I was a little disappointed in Lindgren's play calling and at this point in time in the season. I'm not saying you quit running the ball altogether, but like, do we really think it's going to get so much better?
Yeah.
Like, you got to adjust.
What I'm hearing from you here is that you wanted more Nick Marsh and around -6 yard plays. That's what you're jonesing for over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Some short side jet sweeps. Like, I'm for it. Get feisty.
Be feisty, boys.
You're right. You do bring that singular data point. They ran it once and it did not go well.
Thank you. That's all we needed to see. Sample size of 1. Get it. I think maybe there's more that could have been done, kind of opening things up, opening up more of the field, but The O-line is the O-line is the O-line, and that game was going to be tricky no matter what was happening. So, I can't get that upset. I do have some coaching critiques. I think this is the first time I've differed from Mr. Smith, Coach Smith. What is the point of pulling Aiden Childs at the end of the game?
He did last week too.
2 weeks in a row now. He's called off the dogs, put Tommy Schuster in. I get one of those. Get Tommy Schuster some Division 1A reps. I understand that. To do it 2 weeks in a row, I don't get. And it was punctuated by Oregon putting in Dante Moore, a dude, listeners, who's a quarterback from Aiden Childs' recruiting class and ranked on paper higher than him. Dante Moore, of course, from Detroit, decided to go to UCLA, then transferred to Oregon. And just the fact that Dante Moore came in garbage time and threw the ball once and rushed the ball once, that's the type, on paper, that's the type of play that Aiden Childs is supposed to be getting right now.
Right.
He's supposed to be getting those second team reps. So why are we putting in Tommy Schuster that's played 1,000 games of football to take the easy reps? Let Aiden Childs stay in there, get the game reps, get them against Oregon's second team, get some wins, feel good about a few things that you do. I'm not terribly concerned about injury for Oregon's second team. Tell them to get rid of the ball. Tell them, like, the game's over. It doesn't matter. Consider this a scrimmage. Throw it away. Don't force it. But we're going to call some plays. You're going to make some clean throws. We're going to move the ball down the field a little bit. What is the point of putting in Tommy Schuster for 5 pass completions? Like, he didn't need those. He's thrown God knows how many passes in college.
And by the way, you're also riling up now a fan base, and there are plenty of idiots and a-holes, and the Venn diagram there is a circle of people who will seize it, and now it's just the toxicity, right? So you've also mismanaged from a publicity standpoint. Like, it's dumb.
I don't know. If you watch Tommy Schuster play in this game and you think we could have won if he had played the whole time, you are not well.
Yeah.
That was not changing the outcome of the game.
Yes, and to be clear, we had the take that Tommy could have easily won some games earlier in the year for us, but they weren't against number 3 Oregon. So you needed.
It seems like if you've decided as a program, and we have, I think this is not up for debate, that it's worth taking some lumps as a program to invest in Aiden Childs to get those reps, then give him all the reps.
Because to your point, and I don't think this can be underscored enough, the elite talent in Aiden Childs' class are currently the second string quarterback plenty of places. Mm-hmm. We have, as a program, hitched our wagon to someone who should not be starting yet.
Right.
Like, and that's fine. Like, to also your point about Tommy Schuster versus Aiden Childs, like, Aiden Childs has an immensely more talent than Tommy Schuster ever will. Tommy Schuster has reps, though. That's literally what Aiden Childs needs.
And I get doing this in one of these 2 games. Like, okay, let Tommy see what a Division 1A, like, big time football environment looks like. I don't think he really needed that. I think he probably needed like 2 snaps to start to like acclimate to that. But I get it one time. Doing it now twice in a row, that I do not understand.
It's now becomes your MO, right? Like, and
this is coming from a guy that used to complain that D'Antonio wouldn't do it. Somehow, D'Antonio used to be like, we're not running the score up, and also we're not benching the starters, and our backups never get reps until the starter gets injured. So I complained about that happening, and now I'm complaining about this.
I mean, D'Antoni was dumb in his own. They're different versions. There's nuance there, but I'm with you. Aiden Childs needs more reps, and because the thing is, the scheme isn't different when the second stringers are in from Oregon. They're still valuable reps.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm couldn't agree more. It was a major coaching, I think, flaw in this game, and I'm worried that it's going to become habit. Hopefully, though, we don't see any more of these kinds of benchings. Right? Like, I'm fine with you're winning by a lot benching.
Yeah.
But we don't no more blown out benches.
There is another thing. Maybe there's one positive in this game, and we got an email from Andy Boyan who pointed this out, and he put numbers to it. So I do appreciate that. The injury list was not that substantial. You asked me at the beginning of the year what my hopes are for the Ohio State and Oregon games, and I said survive. Right. And I think the team has done that. I know that there is significant concerns on the O-line. And that's just going to be a problem. That's not fixing itself this year. There's season-ending injuries, but we are getting some guys back, and guys are participating in games. And Andy did the math here. We are not that far out of line from college football generally in terms of the injuries. The issue, as he points out, and he's absolutely right, is depth. So as we continue, Iowa, very beatable team. Michigan just took an L. They're one-dimensional in a way that we used to feel pretty good about. Now I don't know how confident we are, but we survived the worst of it. We played Ohio State, and then a quick turnaround going across the country, which is its own stupidity. Right. We play what is probably the actual best team in the Big Ten this year. And now it's time for the type of season that Indiana's been enjoying all year. We get that now. So I'm what do you think about having the bye week this week? Do you think that this is sort of a sitting in our own sick situation? Or do you think this is take a day, exhale, recollect yourself? You just ran the gauntlet. Let's go from here.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things there, right? I don't know that players are particularly good at acknowledging that other people might be more talented than them.
Sure.
I will say this defense, I've been impressed with their mettle and their commitment. I do think it's an open question, and Smith was asked about this, about a worry about a loss of confidence. Yeah. I think it's fair to wonder on the offensive side of the ball, you got to get something fixed.
Yeah.
Right? You got to start putting points on the board. And that means you got to stop turning the fucking ball over. You have to stop that, because your red zone possessions are too precious to keep that shit going, right? But you also need to get more red zone possessions. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's the place that I worry about them sort of sitting in their own sick. But tough loss to BC. Get, kind of embarrassed at home against Ohio State, get fully embarrassed at Oregon. But it seems like they've shown up in each of those games.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the staff is losing the team. Was it? I think it was Brooks from 24/7 that asked if anyone had requested a red shirt for a transfer. And Smith seemed kind of surprised by the question. He hadn't even thought about that or considered it, and said that no one has approached him with that. And we all lived through that last year. There's a reason that the journalists from this program are asking a question like that, and it's because this fan base has seen that, and it doesn't appear that is an issue at this time, as demoralizing as these losses have been.
And I'll also note that Chuck Brantley, 2-time portal entrant, was available after the game for media and couldn't have more authentically, in a defiant way, come across as someone who was very much committed to winning football at Michigan State University. There was a funny but there was a funny video clip going around of Demetrius Martin, Coach Meat, former cornerbacks coach for Oregon, taking a picture with all of the Oregon cornerbacks. And Chuck Brantley was like, "Nah, I'm getting in this picture too."
He's my coach.
Yeah, and so Chuck Brantley's not even a captain, but if that's the resolve you're getting from somebody like that, again, this isn't me trying to throw mud on the kid, but 2-time portal entrant, right? Not someone that I would have had high hopes is committed to Michigan State University in a meaningful way, and is like, "No, let's go." That strikes me as authentic.
I was a little surprised. I'm glad you brought up the Meat picture with the Oregon secondary. I was surprised by the backlash to that, of why are the Oregon guys with our coach and why is one of our guys getting in there? And it's like, because they like their old coach. That's exactly what I want. I want to take these guys' coach that they clearly liked. I want him to be our coach. And then I want our guys to be like, "Nah, he's my coach now. I'm getting in on this too." It's exactly what I want to see in these situations. So
you want a coach who's going to build that bond, right? That's the kind of thing that stops people from leaving the school. That's the kind of thing that speaks to recruits wanting to come work and be with you.
Recruiting, we have heard, Coach Meat is one of the better recruiters on the staff. And that was evident in that photo taking place and guys seeking him out for that. I thought it was great. I was psyched to see that.
Yeah, I didn't quite get it at first. It took me a second to realize that, oh, that's Coach Meat over there. I was like, why is Chuck Brantley here?
just hanging out with a bunch of Oregon Ducks.
Well, they all kind of do know each other from camps and stuff, but it was still weird, right? And I liked that Coach Meat retweeted the clip with a DB pedigree, his thing, right? I also think that's telling, because sometimes there's this thought that being a good recruiter means you're actually kind of full of shit, right? You're a salesperson. But the fact that all of those players were still that also speaks to a continuity of authenticity throughout the journey. So 10 out of 10. I mean, I guess it's not surprising that he's literally a Spartan. So I'll take that too.
It's nice. The guys on the staff that are literally Spartans are having a pretty good amount of success right now, and I'm glad to see it. I hope we get to keep them for a long time.
Yeah. So I want to shift here for a second. I want to do a little therapy here, because
is that what this is for? Number 29? Get 29 back out?
I finished mine. I think it's delicious.
Do you want mine? I'll send it here through the universe.
So we're halfway through the season, 3-3. The over/under was 5.5, I think, for the season.
4.5, wasn't it?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think we all, though, whatever Vegas said, we kind of thought this should be at least a 6-win team.
Yeah.
Ends up being that you're looking at the back half of the schedule. Indiana might be a lot harder than we thought. Might,
We'll see.
might.
Might is the word. Yeah.
Illinois, definitely harder than anyone thought. And Rutger is not an easy out anymore. They're just not. Like, so that 6-win is not guaranteed. I guess I've found myself, though, more upset at this team than I thought I would be. I thought it would be like, whatever happens is gravy. And then now I find myself getting really angry, and it's not so much Ohio State and Oregon. The BC game I'm still pretty upset about. But even Ohio State and Oregon, Ohio State, I'm like, that scoreboard should reflect that we're a better team than we actually are. Yeah. Oregon, in a way, should reflect that we're a better team. There should be another 7 points on that scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care what anyone says. 31-17, you feel a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So, do you have this similar sensation of being more irritated, frustrated, disappointed? What you choose your word, right? But and why do you think that is?
I think it's the nature of how this team is not living up to its potential. It's not entirely, and in the Oregon game, we did see it lined up against a better team, guy to guy, more talented. If you play the game of like, hey, how many of these starters from Oregon, how many of these starters from MSU would play on one mixed up team? Like, it's almost all yellow highlighters on that team.
Right.
But that is not always the case. There's enough talent, self-evident ability on this team. Injuries are an issue, but still, that they should have comfortably won, I would say, the BC game. They should have more comfortably won the Maryland game. Shouldn't have required Maryland to trip over themselves to win that game. It's the nature with the mistakes, the turnovers, and with all of the penalties that I think is so frustrating. If you were just bad, obviously the talent wasn't there, and you had scrappy guys that just didn't have it, that would be one thing. But because they're demonstrating, I think, at times that there is some potential here, it makes it all the more frustrating when they're tied for 120th in Division 1A for most penalty yardage, when Aiden Childs has twice as many interceptions as he has touchdowns. Those are the things that really start to irk at you, because you can see the potential that's not being realized. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's something else?
Yeah, there's a degree to which I'm going to regret saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yes. Go.
There's a way in which Aiden Childs is capable of making me feel the same way that AJ Hoggard was capable of making me feel.
Mean. Okay. You didn't have to go there. I agree with you. You do deserve to get in trouble for that.
But
why do you have to put that evil out into the world, Mike Jones? I liked it better last week when you weren't here, because those types of things weren't said. Plum would never say anything like that.
Plum would never say anything like that.
Would never say anything like that.
But I think the difference between AJ Hoggard and Aiden Childs is a true sophomore who really should not be at most programs, or at many programs that were series competitors. He would not be starting.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't fully put it on him in the same way that I put it on AJ, where, like, bro, we've been through this how many seasons now. But what is similar is that there were times you could see AJ play excellently.
Mm-hmm.
He had the capacity to be part of a great team.
The couple games that he took over. So
yeah, but he was not consistent, and So that is it irks me in the exact same way because you can see the talent out of Aiden Childs. And I think the other thing that's frustrating is that in spite of you brought up the sort of if it was just a talent differential, what is frustrating is that on the offensive line we've seen a continuation of this talent differential just plague Michigan State for how many fucking years now?
Ever since Jack Conklin walked out the door, basically.
But you also see enough talent that maybe, just maybe, they could overcome that, and yet it's not like that they can't even be just good enough on the offensive line for people to meaningfully honor our rushing attempts. Is frustrating. So I think that's right, but I also think there was something about watching them that changed my something about watching this team that led me to believe they could be more than what I thought they were coming into the year. Mm-hmm. I think that's also it, is that they were capable of capturing my imagination of what they could be this season, and they still don't live up to that.
Couple things I need to add on this. One, since you brought up AJ Hoggard, in fairness to Aiden Childs, I don't question for a second his want to. So far,
that's a good call out.
No degree to which I'm yelling at the TV of like, Aiden, care. He clearly cares.
Yes.
He's worried about everyone around him caring too much. His self-soothing thing is continuing, where he runs up to his teammates and it's like, settle down. Yeah, I fumbled it, but everyone else settle down. I'm not worried about that. And two,
that's fair.
Which honky tonk do you think AJ Hoggard was at when the doors when the downed field the uprights went down Main Street or Broadway? Where do you think he was looking up from? And be like, what's going on? What's all that commotion out there?
Is there
That's a big bachelorette party.
Did you hear what they're gonna do with it? So
they put it in
back
the
out of the river.
Oh no! What are they gonna do with it?
It sounds like the plan is to chop it up and sell it to pay for their SEC fine.
Oh, God, yes, because they got a. Well, they also got an NCAA fine, didn't they?
Is that why? Why do we do like?
Because you can't. It's player endangerment, Michael. It's player endangerment. Didn't you see what happened to Caitlin Clark last year with all those people on the court? She ran through one and got injured. I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
It was Duke, maybe? It was Duke.
It was a Duke dude. Or it was a Carolina guy?
Filipowski. It was Filipowski.
Filipowski, yeah. Yep.
Is rushing the court a finable expense or offense?
I think it is becoming, at least in the different conferences, it is. But I believe it is becoming one. And then everyone can pearl clutch on ESPN the next day and be like, this would never be allowed in the NBA. This is because people don't care as much in the NBA. It's different.
Bet your ass that like if Bama came to Michigan State in our current situation, heck, even if we were number 2 in the country and we beat them, that we will storm that would be right. That would be the scenario where it finally happens, and those field goal posts are coming down.
If it wasn't obvious enough, and I know they did win that game, but Bama going to Wisconsin, if that wasn't clear enough that like Nick Saban's dead, like he's not there anymore, them losing to the Doors is the clearest like. The college football villain is dead. Like there's still going to be a good team. I think Kalen DeBoer is still a pretty good coach. I think he's not as good a coach as his record indicates, but I think he's still obviously a pretty good coach. And but them going on the road to a Big Ten team was like the institutional acknowledgement that they're not the program that they had been. Yeah. They're used to. And now this loss is the like team acknowledgement that they're not the program that they used to be.
Vanini had a great piece in The Athletic on how Kalen DeBoer is like an incredible coach, but will put up these like, what happened moments. Anyway, we've gone far afield. I want to chat a little bit about, look, we just played the two best teams in the conference. If you're aspiring to win a national championship, right? Like your roster should look and feel like Ohio State or Oregon.
Yeah.
I think we also saw in those two games, notwithstanding, like, look, Aiden Childs doesn't put the ball on the ground against Oregon. Maybe we win 31-17. We'll still all know that it wasn't really close.
But we'll feel a little better. And the revisionist history will be easier someday.
No, you never know if you go 7-zip. Like, I'm not saying we win. I'm just saying you don't know what the final score might have ended up being. But and we also know that Ohio State game was not. What I'm trying to say is we know there's some coaching here that I think is meaningful.
Yeah.
I do think this staff is pretty good and is capable of taking a team farther than what it projects out at on paper. But I'm curious, like looking at the roster, looking at who's leaving over the next couple of years, because what are we talking for timeline to be competitive like that? And we haven't seen the recruiting come in for Smith thus far as someone who would recruit at that level.
Right.
Though it is worth noting really quick, Keith Benafa, the running backs coach, was running backs coach at Boise State when, was it Ashton? Is it Ashton Jennings? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say Jennings.
He recruited him.
Okay. Do that here, please. Do that here, please. More canines, please. Thank you. So pitch me on this. What is the state of the program in the next 2 years with the talent that we currently have? So considering I think, graduations.
Yeah. Next year's not looking too bad. It's entirely possible that no, Alante's not going to get another year. That sucks. He's done. So we're looking at people who are like starting / meaningful contributors, right? Luke Newman, offensive line, Alante Brown, Montori Foster, Ed Woods, Jordan Turner, Angelo Gross, Cal Halliday. And you know what? I'll throw Dallas Fincher on there because he's been a pretty decent backup. That's who we're losing next year.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you can probably replace a lot of those pieces, right? That sound fair?
Yep.
But from there, looking 2 years out, Chuck Brantley, Nate Carter, Legend Cavazos, Maureen Smith, Darius Snow, Khalil Majid, Ruquan Buckley, Jalen Satchel, and Nakai Martinez, Wayne Matthews, Jack Velling, Dylan Tatum, Malik Spencer. Like you've lost pretty big contributors in 2 years.
But that's also how college football works. Like we're getting back to the point where you're not going to have the COVID years to make everyone immortal, basically. So every team is going to get some turnover.
Right. My question is, though, where's the talent going to come from?
Well, I spent this time looking that up. Now that I wasn't hanging on every word of yours, Michael, I was hanging on every word. We are currently 15th in the Big Ten for 2025 recruiting, which puts us behind programs like Rutgers, Maryland, Iowa, Minnesota. That's a problem. Indiana, technically, but that's only because they have more commits than us. That's a problem. When Mark D'Antonio was winning, we didn't think, when you and I were having these conversations without the phone, without the microphone, without the camera, we didn't think that he was recruiting at the level that the program could be recruited at, but he was recruiting third or fourth place in the Big Ten. Right now, they're 15th place in an 18-team Big Ten. And that is way below where the program should be. The program needs to be, and I'm not expecting them to out-recruit USC. I'm not expecting them to out-recruit Ohio State. I'm not expecting them to out-recruit Michigan. But it needs to be, or Oregon. But it needs to be above Washington. It needs to be above Rutgers. It needs to be at or above Nebraska. I know Nebraska fans would cough, would be like, dismiss that. But we're a better program than Nebraska over the last 15 years. You cannot debate that. So we need to be above that team. We need to be in the Wisconsin area. We need to be way above UCLA. We need to be way above Minnesota. We need to be way above Indiana. So, like, this is a concern and one that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. It's fair to point out that major pieces of that D'Antonio run were not highly recruited players, right? Like, so you got it. If Kevin, if you're going to posit to me that essentially our best case scenario in the new Big Ten is being ranked 5th, then you're going to need some of those. You have to have some of those players. And I don't doubt that Smith and company are actually probably capable of that. But I'm also with you that this needs to elevate, because a number of the names that I also read off that we're going to lose are 4-star recruits that Mel Tucker brought in. Mm-hmm. That we're all very happy to have. Dylan Tatum probably actually is going to get another year because of his injury this year, so he won't be leaving that quickly. But look,
to put things in perspective, with a transition in coaching last year, 2024 brought in the 10th best class in the Big Ten. So we're below the transition year.
Wait. There were 10 coaches that changed last year in the Big Ten, is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying last year where we had a changeover in coaching, the recruiting rankings were still number 10.
Oh, I see.
So,
I see. Yeah.
But that might include transfers. Because we did okay in the transfers.
This year's class is not done. We'll see how it all shakes out. At minimum, we expect the quantity to go up.
All right, we spoke 50 minutes on a terrible football program. Should we get this taste out of our mouth with some programs that are winning?
Yeah.
Okay.
So MSU women's soccer just beat U of M 1-0 in front of a record-setting crowd, over 5,000 in attendance at a stadium that holds 2,500. Pretty impressive stuff.
It sounds like there were more people in the stands, at the softball stands for this game than there tend to be for softball games. So that's a little perspective. And I walked past DeMartin Stadium as the game was going on. Didn't get a chance to pop inside. Not an ally. I don't support women, and that's why I didn't go in. But I can attest that place was packed and it was rocking. And they won. Like they scored on a PK near the end of I think 20 minutes to play. But by all accounts, dominated Michigan for most of that game. It just didn't reflect it in the scoreboard. And that leaves the team right now 9-0-4, still undefeated. Where undefeated again does do a lot of work. Because of the 4 ties. So there are 5 teams to play before the Big Ten tournament. No ranked teams, but they are going on the road to Oregon and Washington. So we just saw what happens when you go all the way across the country. But then when they get home, it's Wisconsin, Northwestern, Purdue, and then into the Big Ten tournament. So we're not going to pretend to know how Oregon and Washington's women's soccer teams are. But if they can come home from the West Coast trip, they keep getting these types of crowds, the momentum just continues, I mean, I don't think they will because it was the Michigan game, and obviously that's going to bring people out. But there's a fever pitch. There's a lot of support. I mean, what a tremendously successful season. They could go back to back to back.
Yeah, and hopefully they will. So, where are they in the standings right now?
I think fifth. I mean, there's multiple. No, I think they dropped a little bit. Or no, you're talking about
conference standings?
Oh, one. Well, they'd have to be number one or tied for number one.
They're not actually.
Oh, really?
Iowa, USC, and UCLA are all ahead of them
because they've got more wins.
They're all 5-0-1 versus MSU and Rutgers and Ohio State, who are all 4-0-2.
What were those? What were those three teams?
Iowa, USC, and UCLA.
None of them are on the schedule, by the way. That's our new conference. It's so stupid. It's so dumb.
But Kevin, money.
Money for football.
Let's chat some hockey. MSU went up to Lake Superior State University and swept them with a overtime win, 2-1, and a win today. Was it or no?
I believe actually that overtime win counts as 3/4 of a win and 1/4 of a loss.
Wait, what? Is
that
a real thing?
It's a real thing in certain standings.
Anyway,
so sweeping them would be inaccurate. But yes, they won 2-1 in the first game.
MSUSpartans.com says they swept them.
All right, MSU Spartans. Is that Neil? Did Neil write that? He would know.
That's the official Michigan State website.
Yeah, I think Neil, what's his name, writes those articles.
Oh Jesus!
Or at least he used to. Anyway, so won in overtime in the first game, and then just poured it on in the second game. No scoring until the second period, but Isaac Howard got 2 goals. Like it was never in doubt. The team from the highlights, because it's not easy to watch hockey. But from the highlights and from watching the play-by-play on X, seems like they kind of redeemed themselves in game 1 and played much better in game 2. So kudos to all of the Spartans that made their way on up to the Sioux Locks to watch this game. Well done. Next week is a absolute doozy. Boston College comes to town. So this will be a top 5 matchup. Is this MSU's like opportunity for a big national coming out party to host what is, I believe, right now the number 2 team? They won't have played any games. These will be their first games. But like 2 absolutely massive games in Munn on Friday and Saturday, and good for you if you've got tickets. Like listener Mike Jones,
right?
I hope that you renewed those season tickets because this season could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. And then real quick, because I don't know that there's a ton to say right now, but Michigan State is also traveling to Northern Michigan University for an exhibition game in basketball on Sunday. Tom Izzo's jersey, number 10, will be retired by Northern Michigan University, which is very exciting. I don't expect it to gain anything from this experience.
Right. Except for, as Tom Izzo said at Media Day, a little bit of humility, a little bit of, lunch pail, pack your lunch, go to work type of, we're picking up on that in the UP. The guy's spending a lot of time in the UP. Like we should be the most favorite team in the UP. All 7 people up there should look up from their pasties and greatly appreciate. And greatly appreciate the Spartans.
Sure.
I'd say to you.
All right. Quick word. Our dear friends at Mama's Mercantile and Eatery at mamas.merc on Instagram. Do check them out. If you are heading down I-94, get off on that Clear Lake Road exit. Go there for an MSU game day special. You know what? I dare you to show up on Saturday when there is no MSU game day and just challenge them to present you with the MSU game day special. It's a $15 Go Green Olive Burger, which is a half-pound locally raised beef, cheddar cheese, house-made olive sauce, served with fries and dip and sauce. You got $3 domestic bottles. You got some buffalo chicken dip. You got some hand beer-battered onion rings. Games will be on with volume. And I got to check in and see if the brand new bar railing is there. But it's coming this fall. Maybe you're like, hey, this Saturday for the pumpkin patch. Well, on Sunday, if they're playing on Sunday, I don't really know. Lions game, $15 Honolulu burger. It's got cheddar, pineapple, barbecue sauce, mayo, lettuce, fries and dip and sauce. Same deals on specials and apps. You know it. Check them out, Mama's Merc on Clear Lake Road. Great food, great place. Can't say enough about them. And don't forget to mention Can't Read, Can't Write for 10% off of your bill.
10%. Also challenge them to Friday at 6 p.m. put the Big Ten Network on because MSU and Boston College will be playing hockey on the Big Ten Network. So that was for you. That was also for Mama's Mercantile. Unfortunately, you won't be able to watch Saturday's game.
But maybe you could watch Sunday, Northern Michigan University and Michigan State playing some hoops, which will also be on the Big Ten Network.
Also on the Big Ten Network with Lisa Byington and Bill Rafferty on the call.
I can't believe Raph's going to make that trip.
They're sending him to the U. Onions.
Oh God, he's just there to hang out with Izzo.
He wants to drink all the booze. And on the Red Cedar message board, there were boots on the ground reporting that at the hockey game at Lake Superior, there was hard liquor available at the concessions, which I think is just because state government doesn't get up that far. Like, how do you put hard liquor in your college hockey arena?
How do you
We just got beer.
If you're that far north, you have to.
That's true. I guess that's
for safety driving home.
Yeah.
All right. Should we dive into some Twitter questions?
Let's take those Twitter questions.
All right. Well, just a reminder, if you all want to participate, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_pod, or you can email us can't read, can't write 1855 at gmail.com. We've got a number of you jabronis who are now doing that, and it is the best way to get at us if it's not on Twitter. All right, Greg, let's kick this off. Mike Jones starts us off with 3-0 with 10-plus penalties, 0-3 with 9 or less. Jonathan Smith seems like a bit of a nerd. When will we start taking these analytics seriously?
Stats are for losers, Mike Jones. Stats are for losers. It is funny, though, that this is how things have shaken out.
We're not playing aggressively enough.
Apparently not. Mike Jones also asks, with the Saturday of upsets, adds us to that list beating Oregon 10-0 with a Saturday of upsets, add us to that list beating Oregon 10-0 on Saturday. So he's saying if the game played on Saturday, we would have won 10-0. Too bad we lost 31-0 on Friday.
Must
Oregon
be a typo.
Clearly was lobbying for a Friday night game because they were scared of us on Saturday, correct?
Must be. Can't deny it. Infallible logic.
People are saying.
Next up, Kate Wall, Greg, number 1, all dogs starting 5. Jeremy Fears is required to be on this team. Does that mean Teen Cleaves is also on this team?
I think he's got to be. Xavier Tillman, I would put on my all dog team.
Yeah. Richardson?
He's a pretty boy. He was a skill player. I consider all dog guys to be like going at you.
Who's the one who we saw his arm Lee.
Edong Ebok?
Yes.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yes.
Can we put like a Derek Nix on the all dog team?
I mean, do we need to operate under the assumption that our starting five need to be like an actual starting five?
Well, Kate hasn't been holding that to us. I like to just name guys that sort of fit the archetype that she's asked for,
Sure.
and then let it all work out in the watch.
What about like a Max Christie?
Yeah, I think we could all agree.
Aaron Henry. Aaron Henry. I'd put Aaron Henry on the list.
Gabe, all dog. All dog.
Being serious about Aaron Henry.
I don't know if Aaron Henry.
He put that team on its back and single-handedly took it to the tournament.
I guess. Can we put Scott Skiles on this list? We don't do a whole lot of before our time, but I think Scott Skiles belongs on this list.
Sure.
If we're going to do stuff before our time, I think Eric Snow was also had some dog in him. Yeah. I'm trying to think of we think of Izzo players as being like gritty and like tough and defensive minded, but I'm
Matt Random.
Oh, you cut your own mic, please. Jesus.
Marquise Gray.
Queese might belong on this. Zach Randolph? Can we put Zach? But I'm being greatly informed by his NBA career when I put him on that list.
What about
Charlie
great question,
Bell?
Kate. We're going to move on from this. Without saying names, Kevin. Last week, a co-host and listener guest agreed that Tommy Schuster didn't play against Ohio State. He entered with 12:09 left in the fourth and closed out the game. Did you even watch the game?
Wait, is this true? We said this last week? Oh.
I don't know because I didn't listen, and Daddy wasn't home.
Oh, Kate, did we really?
That's hilarious, given your earlier point today.
I mean, I was talking to Clinton Jones at that time in the game, but I think I was aware of what was happening.
For shame, Kevin. Next up, Jarrett.
I might have misspoke. I'm sorry, Kate. Good. Thank you for calling us out. We deserve to be called out for that. So well done.
Yes, Kate. Continue to call them out. Next up is Jarrett. If given the choice, would you switch Aiden Childs with Dylan Gabriel or Will Howard?
I mean, Dylan Gabriel, I think. Who were you more impressed with over the last 2 weeks? I kept being told how Dylan Gabriel's never thrown an interception in his entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I think schematically, the way that Gabriel's able to operate for like in their passing game is pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. And look, 56 starts or whatever it is 56 starts. Like, I'll take that experience. Yeah. There's a reason Dante Moore is not starting at Oregon.
Correct. Side note in all this, I love that Jason Benetti was on the call for us and all of the little Detroitisms that he was throwing in. Love Jason Benetti. I also love how I believe he was on another call on Saturday and how clear it is that he and his schedulers did not expect the Tigers to be in the postseason with the way that his calendar is being handled right now.
I think it's for the Freep. Couch mentioned that the beat writer for the Tigers is on his honeymoon right now.
I mean, that is the right thing to do. Like, you have to go on your honeymoon. And it's perfectly fine that you scheduled it for this time because the team was not supposed to be in the postseason.
You even had data in that suggested the team was not supposed to be in the postseason.
They traded some of their best bullpen players because they didn't expect to be in the postseason. The program didn't expect to be there. So, you can't fault any of that. But it was funny.
Next up, Corey Ostrom. Will MSU football and the Tigers restore the happiness they've stolen from me this weekend? Or will my I'm sorry, wait. MSU football. Okay, that's what it says. Or will my happiness be restored by day drinking bourbon and 51K IPA?
Are you familiar with the 51K IPA? What is this?
I'm not.
It rings a bell. I think I've seen this and maybe had it, but Black Rocks. Where's Black Rock out of?
Let's say. Let's.
Yeah.
Marquette.
Yeah. I've had a few 51K IPAs.
It's described as bursting hops all over your face. Look, this is a family show. I don't need that.
That's a little bit much, guys. And maybe that's how you do it in the Yoop, but down here, let's have some class, okay? Next up from Munkeg Field.
Is that what I wrote? Might be.
I think it's Munfield
Keg,
Keg, I believe. One question: why is K'Ron Lynch Adams not starting? He has to start against teams like Iowa. Well, he gets the bulk of the carries at this point, so it's sort of one of those like doesn't matter who's starting situations.
Yeah, I guess, but I'm kind of with him or her.
I think
or they.
I think what it is, and I'm not on the staff. Did you guys know that I'm not on the staff? But I think on paper, in a perfect world, Nate Carter is probably equipped to be the better back. But under the circumstances where they're routinely getting first contact behind the line of scrimmage, K'Ron Lynch Adams is in effect the better back. So they start with Nate Carter to be like, maybe it'll work this week. And then it doesn't. And they switch over to K'Ron Lynch Adams.
I have a crazy thought, though.
Yeah,
maybe early in the game, and then in the middle of the game, and then at the end of the game, that scoring matters. Again, I want to emphasize at the beginning of the game, and the middle, and the end, that scoring matters. So play your best back for all of those things.
Sure.
So I'm with you, Munkeg Field.
Munkeg Field. Well done. Next up from Beth, who's probably not listening anymore. I'm sorry, Beth. Imagine an alien
Should we
has
just skip these questions.
Yeah, we might as well. Imagine an alien has touched down on Earth for the first time in the middle of the Izzone campout, which was this weekend. We didn't even mention that. How would you explain it? Include your personal experiences.
It's an awesome event. Kevin, what's your favorite Izzone campout experience? As I don't have any.
Poor baby. Oh, my little guy. Darrell Summers and I went back to back at one point. I told him that Izzo had sent me over, and if I was taller than him, that I was taking his scholarship. And he and I went back to back, and Darrell Summers was just barely taller than me. An interesting thing about the Izzone campout is like you actually get to interact with the guys and you get to see them close up a little bit more. And they kind of just, you come to realize like they're humans after all. When you get close to the football players, you're like, oh my God, you're so much bigger in real life than you look on TV. But the basketball players, it's like, oh, you're tall guys, sure, but you're not like 350 pounds at the same time. So
did you get to meet Neitzel?
We were around. I just handed him 2 toothbrushes and was like, go to town, bud. It's the most fun with the Izzone camp out is just you get to hang out with the other Izzoners. Tom's going to stop by at some point. You're going to interact with him. I woke up one day with Tom Izzo blaring a bullhorn into my tent. That's a memory that doesn't go away. So yeah, it's a good time. And I'm glad that everyone was out there and it wasn't raining for him.
The ambidextrous thing just made me think about the Oregon game and how they wouldn't shut up about Tez Johnson playing tag.
Yeah.
Stop. Just stop. Anyway,
Next up from Beth, Jonesy, you made a dodgeball reference a couple weeks ago. Is it time to call Patches O'Houlihan into the locker room? What would Patches do with this team?
well, he'd start with Jerron Glover, and he'd say, if you can catch a wrench, you can catch a ball.
And then Jerron Glover would take one off the noggin. Next up from Thomas Zambiasi. I know this has been the general vibe lately, but can the fan base calm down for a hot minute? We're coming up short against some of the country's best teams, not a Herm Edwards coached ASU team.
That's a deep and hurtful cut, Thomas.
Yeah. Why did you have to bring that up, Thomas? Why did you have to bring that up?
Yeah.
Against that one of those games. Thank you very much.
Future Heisman finalist Jaden Daniels, though, in fairness, but yeah. Well, we kind of talked about this. I'm not mad. I am truly not upset that we lost to Ohio State or Oregon. Those were baked in losses. But it is. We could be 4-2 right now.
Yeah.
And those games could have been closer, and it could feel like we're closer to where we want to be. So I'm not going to stop believing that this team this year could be more than it currently is. And I hope that the team, and I think they do, also believes that about themselves. But would you agree, Kevin?
I hope so. I'm distracted because he brought up the Herm Edwards coached ASU games. I don't think we wanted to believe it at the time, but looking back, losing both of those games might be one of the clearest indicators that the D'Antonio era was over.
It's that or that Illinois game.
Yeah, the Illinois game also hurt so bad.
Next up.
Sorry. Anyway,
I can't believe Herm Edwards even coached college.
It seems like a fever dream because he got hired because the AD liked watching him on TV or just talking ball with him. God, it's so weird. Next up from Thomas Jonesy, are colleges having homecoming courts selected by a panel of higher ups, the successors to the Holy Roman Empire system of prince electors? Why do we accept this tacit endorsement of monarchy in our own society?
Thomas,
someone's asking the right question.
I didn't know this to be true. I also believe, Thomas, that you're in grad school. So I have some queries about why you're there are levels of barriers to you paying attention to this, but this is an excellent question. And
I do remember when we were students and we were in the student section being like, who are these people and how are they chosen to be down on the field?
Truly, it felt like you had better odds of finding out how the 50-50 raffle was actually selected or at all. Anyway, next up is Spartan 18770. Greg, would Tommy Schuster start for Michigan right now?
That's a great question. I mean, I've seen it said a couple of times in a few places that the two best quarterbacks in the state are both on MSU's roster, and
probably
Michigan is dealing with that right now. It does seem like they would, if it's true that with the pieces around him, there were games earlier this year that MSU would have had a better or less stressful chance of winning with Tommy Schuster as the quarterback. It does also seem maybe it's true that Michigan would deserve to be somewhere in the high teens, low teens ranking instead of where it actually should be, which is low 20s or maybe out of the rankings.
As an aside, I saw someone say that if Alex Orji had Aiden Childs' stat line, that Alex Orji would be rightfully skewered. That would require Alex Orji to know how to throw a ball.
Yeah, to actually pass.
Stop. Anyway, Next up from Spartan 18770. Was I the only one that was filled with rage Saturday night seeing Gino Vandemark playing on Bama's O-line?
Well, they lost.
And also, maybe you saw Michigan's injury report and you were filled with joy. So
that's right. Name someone, also from Spartan 18770. Name someone from the past that you would want to have a beer with, and what would you talk about, Jonesy?
I don't know what this means precisely. Like,
from the past, just from the past.
So could it be you from yesterday?
Sure, it could be. That would be a spectacular waste of a beer, but sure.
I mean, I'd take Nick Saban from yesterday. Like I would truly, if we're keeping it in sort of the sports universe, like Nick Saban is someone I would very much love to have an honest conversation with about his time at Michigan State. Would he have ever considered coming back here? Like, get him like 5 beers deep and get him that. And then I need to know what he thinks of Pat McAfee. Like, how is Nick Saban? Like, I need Nick Saban to cut loose with me. And like, why does he have so much disdain for the press? Like, it's part of his job. Like, I have questions.
Yeah. What about not sports related?
I'd have to think about that a little bit more.
I can't believe it's just not immediately Jesus, Michael. Come on. Shameful.
Yeah. Obama.
Obama from yesterday. This yesterday thing that you're on. He's giving you everyone from the entire past. Have some imagination.
I'd have a grandparent who's no longer with us.
Oh, that's nice. The earnestness again. Barf. Next up from Nate C. When was the last time you heard the Windows 95 startup jingle? Well, it is actually a bit of a meme on the internet. Like, they'll throw it in as a drop. We could include it as a drop here. That would be.
I wonder if it picks up copyright protection on YouTube. But you've heard it, I don't know, what, probably 6-ish weeks ago when you were recording with all those issues? I assume you were on Windows 95.
I don't even know what you're referencing, but that's mean and hurtful. And I can't believe that you would reopen that gaping wound. Next up, this is definitely for you. What are you going as this Halloween?
I don't know for certain. I think
you guys don't have like a big, cute, like family thing to do.
Blake's going as Beetlejuice. There's no thing to
Does
pair
he
that
know
with.
what Beetlejuice is?
Not really, and that's what makes it even dumber.
I don't know what Beetlejuice is. I'm too young for Beetlejuice. So, I have gray in my beard.
Last year, I went as Luigi, he went as Mario, and my dad went as Bowser.
Should have been Yoshi, but it's fine. Or Toad. That would have been funny if your dad was Toad.
But I'm thinking about going as one of the Minions this year.
Okay. All right. You truly, we try to hold on to some credibility on this podcast, and you are intent on losing all of it.
I have an audience of 1, and he is 5.
No.
Next up,
but you're sending him as Beetlejuice and a Minion. You guys have them switched. You should be Beetlejuice. He should be the Minion. This is shameful. That's also stupid. Anyway.
That's why I don't want to be it. Next up from Nate C. Greg, have you made plans to vote yet?
I have my ballot here. But we have any reason at all by request to vote by mail. And it is downstairs right now. So
why haven't you sent it in?
Because I'm still unsure.
This is sort of like the expungement thing. You just truly have...
You should send it in. Next up from Momopoly, Vanderbilt students. Oh, someone brought it up. Good job, Momopoly. Vanderbilt students carried the goalposts to Broadway. Where would you place the Spartan goalposts if they beat number 1 team some week?
Ooh.
I mean, there's a river right outside the stadium.
Yeah, but
if you're looking for a body of water, it's right there.
I feel like we should take it to the hamster cage. Prop it up on top there.
I like that. The acknowledgement that the hamster cage is the landmark on campus, and that's where it goes. And that's where it stays forever. The city of East Lansing's not removing it once it's there. They would though, because they would be so crotchety. This NIMBY town. Oh my God! Don't get me started.
It would be very
on
cool
that.
though for it to be on the top floor,
No,
upright.
the old people that live here though would openly resent that there is an upright in a downtown parking structure that they never go to.
Cool.
It would be great. It would be very funny, and that's why the people that live here would never let it happen. Next up from Momopoly, great question. Indiana Bowl bound.
No, say it right with all the exclamation points.
Indiana Bowl bound. Is it legit, or is someone stealing, sharing, selling signs? It's legit because they have the easiest. They have the easiest schedule on the planet. I mean, they did have to win some games, like there's no doubt about that, but they miss everyone.
MSU probably would be 6-0 right now, or whatever, with their schedule. Maybe we'd be 5-1, knowing our propensity to cough the ball up. But it's bad.
Yeah, we would not be 3-3. That's for sure.
Next up is Beppe Plum, rant of the week, Greg. MSU is good. They will be very good soon. Horst is, of course, the queef of the quintessent. Quintessent? But the senior, number 55 from Oregon, is just an effing disgrace. Quit on his team makes me hate him more than a Bob Dylan and Billy Corgan voice mashup while sodomizing Bo Ryan with... I'm not going...
Okay.
I don't know how to respond to any of this.
I like the Bob Dylan Billy Corgan voice mashup. That is funny to me. Billy Corgan is one of those guys where like I like some Pumpkins tunes, but like generally if I am listening to something and his voice comes on, it's an automatic switch.
Ooh, interesting.
Like, is it Zwan that did the cover of Landslide?
No, Zwan is an automatic skip. They were only available on a Zune, so
that's true. Yeah. One of the brown Zunes.
Next up from Beppe Plum. Okay. I now see that the OSU freshman may not have been the a-hole. Ed Woods. That's 2 games and an unsportsmanlike penalty too. You, sir, you may be the problem. Don't horse around and find out. You won't like it. Also, 55 for OU is a POS, deserves a case of doesn't matter. Now you know.
Yeah, we didn't get to see these on the broadcast. What the MSU unsportsmanlike conduct penalties were. Did we get clarification on that? I don't think I've seen reporting on what exactly happened.
Also fine with Ed Woods being a little chippy. I saw that happening after some plays, but he didn't do that in a vacuum. There was plenty of needling that was happening before that. So after the whistle, needling. Next up from Beppe Plum, bonus if time.
Bonus if time.
Bonus if time. Oh, okay, I got it.
No, I get it because who knows how much time we're taking. So thank you.
Adding, I truly am on team Coach Jonathan Smith. I think he will make this program very good in a few years. Have faith. Enjoy the speed bumps. The brighter the sunshine, the darker the shadow. Bright times ahead. #therapy talk. Beppe, no one enjoys speed bumps.
And also, is that true? The brighter the sunshine, the darker the shadow? I think because of dual wave particle theory, it's the brighter the sunshine, the brighter the shadow, because the light bends around you and there's more of it. So I guess
these therapists lie to you.
Maybe give up on therapy is what we're saying.
Yeah. I mean, if they're saying things like that to you, then for sure quit on it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, he is right. Distilled to its essence, he is right. That we are nitpicking on a few things here and there, but it does seem like this is a competent staff with good elements to it, and
that's why I think I wanted to have the conversation before about why we were feeling this way. Is that precisely that? Is that they can be better. And they're better than I expected them to be,
right,
for the year. But like it's stupidity that's holding them back. Next up, Mr. Neurotic Pants. First, as humble Midwesterners, do you ever find the announcing team calling the game delightfully condescending or ham-fisted? Quote, they may not have the size, speed, or talent, but they bring a Midwestern blue-collar grit.
I think the interesting thing is there are certain teams that they would never say that about. They would never say that about other Rust Belt teams, like an Ohio State, for example. They'd never be like, "Oh, it's a gritty Rust Belt Ohio State team," like they're from Youngstown. It doesn't really bother me because I do think there is a certain lunch pail, blue collar work ethic to this university. It is a land grant university, but it is also a little condescending. I don't think there's any. It doesn't have to be, but I think it ends up being because of the way that societally we look at those types of things as yokely and less than. But
yeah, and I also think that like I think it's one thing for us to pride ourselves on as alums, right? The idea that you can be in a white collar job and still bring that mentality with you to work every day. It was it was a big thing at my law school. I went to Temple. We were at the time the third best law school in the city, behind
in a town.
Yeah, behind Penn and Villanova, right? Like, and while still being a pretty good school, right? Like there was very much an attitude of like, no, I'll work harder than you, right? Like, and so I think that's all great and a good way for you to sort of feel about yourself, but I don't love the way that's ascribed to people from from folks from the outside.
Because very few people that graduate from the university end up in blue collar jobs.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's a great question, Mr. Neurotic Pants. It doesn't bother me that we have a bit of a reputation around that. It's certainly never bothered me that Tom Izzo leans into it a little bit, and he does a lot. Because
But I think that's the exact point. But Tom Izzo is one of us, and then Tom Izzo leans into it, and it's sort of what you see in the basketball teams, the things they value themselves, are the kind of effort related things that you or I might take out into the workplace,
right?
So,
and you and I, maybe. How many drinks have we had here? Maybe we get a little bit more personal than we usually get. I'm willing to a little bit here. We work in tech. So Jonesy and I have a joke. We have nice jobs. We do technically work for software companies, but they're not the software companies that you think of. They're not even like the B tier that you think of. They're a little bit further down.
My market cap's not bad.
Okay, your market cap's below my market cap, and I'm saying the things that I'm saying. Well, we don't have one, but
exactly.
Your gross revenue. Your gross revenue is below our gross revenue. Anyway, and I got to tell you, the people that I talk with at work, they don't have that blue collar mentality.
No,
there's a lot of people that I work with that have really high expectations for what the office looks like or what lunch is or this or that or the other thing. Yeah, I think so.
Given where you're headquartered, that surprises me.
Well, it's not those people that I'm talking about.
Mm.
And it's Provo, Utah that Jonesy's making it a reference to, although the headquarters is very nice in Provo, Utah, and they have a lot of nice things, including a lot of very nice desserts, because the Mormons make up for not drinking with the amount of sugar that they can consume on a daily basis. But I have always brought my Midwestern mentality to work, and I think it has served me quite well. Working primarily with people that don't have a Midwestern background, and I'm glad to have it. I'm glad that it has pushed me in certain ways. I'm glad that it's given me certain perspective, and I'm glad. I don't think, sometimes I wonder, and I don't know if you also wonder this, sometimes I wonder if I'd gone to any other university, I care about it as much to podcast about it years later with other guys that I met while I was there. And I'm not so, is that a uniquely MSU thing, or would I do that for any institution that I went to? And I don't know if I can answer that question, but I think I can answer the question that there are certain universities that I could have gone to where I wouldn't have a blue collar work hard mentality that has benefited me so much in the private sector. And I've talked a long time. Do you agree with any of what I just said?
I definitely, I definitely think I'll co-sign on for sure that as much as you guys give me flack about being a coastal elite, that I was in that state for a very long time. And then even Philly among coastal cities is like about as sort of looked down on, if you will, as they come among the what sort of big four, Boston, New York, Philly, and DC. But so I do think that sort of attitude and mentality of both outworking and then a bit of the just sort of the kindness of the Midwest, the self-deprecation has also served me well.
Okay.
So I do find that as I've gotten older, that I have more confidence in it being about where I'm from, and that is a value add, right? But to your other question about it, would I have felt this way about another place? I don't. That's so hard in that I'm sure there are other large institutions that I could have gone to that I would have felt similarly.
Yeah.
I know this is easy to say because we went to Michigan State. I don't know that I would feel that way about the school in Ann Arbor. But I could see a place like West Virginia, right? Or Virginia Tech, or, I could see carrying, or even Penn State, right? Like there are places that I think you could align more with some stuff. But like I got into George Washington, and I really wanted to go to George Washington. Thank God I didn't. Like,
you would not be doing a George Washington sports podcast.
No,
you would not. You'd be hard at work at your third job, paying off your student loans still.
Yeah. But I would be, and I think back to the tragedy that happened on campus in what it'll be a year in February.
It's coming up.
And just the emotional train wreck.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah, the emotional train wreck that I was after that. And, sort of feeling like I didn't know what to do because I was such out to sea, and just only being able to put up my flag. And like, I don't think I would have had those feelings at George Washington, or Georgetown, or, so I don't know. I've now talked for a very long time, but that's all to say, Mr. Neurotic Pants, I don't love when people label Spartans as something, because it is a fair critique of us that we get our hair raised about any slight grievance. That's fair. That is very fair. But I think it's because we don't like being limited or labeled in a way. It's sort of a fuck you. I get to define my own destiny, and I think that's the point, right? Is that attitude is what propels us. So,
Here. Well said. Thank you, Mr. Neurotic Pants, for us to go on for 10 minutes on one question. Next up, Jonesy, are Charles Brantley and Malik Spencer dudes, guys, or dogs? Discuss. They're easily the most exciting players to watch this year.
So, great question. I meant to bring this up. Malik Spencer played a hell of a game.
You did. You did. Yeah.
Was all over the place. And Chuck Brantley has, I forget what the PFF numbers. I think did I send them to you guys? He has an insane number of tops of the Big Ten in terms of cornerbacks this year. The guy that they were actively trying to out recruit, right? But, Mr. Neurotic Pants, dogs are not on the scale, right? Can we agree on that, Greg?
They're on our scale. They're on the Spartan scale. But continue. I'm kind of surprised Mr. Neurotic Pants didn't bring up no fly zoners or something like that.
But I'd say this season, Chuck's been a dude.
Mm-hmm. You're in the midst of a Chuck Brantley just revenge tour right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Redemption arc is what I want to say instead.
Spencer's a guy. He's a guy. Whether they have careers that make them dudes, I think remains to be seen. But Chuck Brantley is having a dude level season, for sure. Would you agree with that scale?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? If we're putting the dog label out there, I give Chuck Brantley a dog label because they did out recruit him, and he just came back and went with it.
Did it anyway. Finally, from Mr. Neurotic Pants, to me, Grooch, be straight with me. Is this MSU team going to win 3 more games this year? I'm thinking 1 more game. Purdue. They'll be playing motivated teams that will take the ball from young master Butterfingers, Aiden Childs. So games remaining are Iowa, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. I think we're going to win this. I think we're going to win this Iowa game, by the way. So there's one.
I think we're also capable of beating Michigan. I'm not putting. Yeah.
Purdue is maybe the worst football team that's ever been fielded. So I think
we don't have Northwestern this year.
Rutgers is going to happen at home November 30th. They don't want that heat.
And we might be playing for a bowl game. Watch out.
Lack thereof. Yeah. Senior day. At Illinois might end up being tough. I think Indiana needs to be taken down a notch. That's a good rivalry time to kind of stick it to them, forks down. And then at Michigan is not a game that I'm willing to put an L next to. So right. I think we've got 3 games in us, Mr. Neurotic Pants. Maybe 4.
Greg, while I was at Disney.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Encountered this person who was manning the bar hours, and I spotted on her ankle an IU tattoo. I said, "Forks down." Forks down.
And she said, "Stop looking at my ankle, weirdo."
It was right there.
Is this real? Did you actually say forks down to a person?
I did say forks down to a person.
What was her reaction? This should be a fake story, but apparently it's real.
No. I said, is that an IU tattoo you have there? And she said, "Oh yeah." And I'm like, "Forks down." And she's like, was aghast.
What a charmer.
And then we had
Okay.
a very lovely chat about how Signetti maybe is the first decent football coach they've ever had, and he's for sure leaving at the end of this year. And that
She's really mean.
She was adamant that if you want to actually enjoy basketball at IU, you need to watch the women's team because the men's team is fool's gold all the time.
They have been. She's certainly right about that. Next up from the Upper Deck Jerk Guy, I put this to you, Mike Jones. What game does Childs Marsh connection really break out and cause the world to go, holy shit?
All right, let's look at the 2025 schedule.
Oh, mean. Come on.
I actually think there's a halfway decent chance the way that Michigan's been running their D, and I know that Michigan has a ton of defense, dudes on defense, but I'm not convinced that their DC is the right choice. It could very well be that game, but I don't look for it to be Iowa. I'll say that. Phil Parker's the real deal.
Yep. Hard to score points against Iowa. Maybe I should have considered that when I was talking about how we could win that game.
Greg, next up from the Upper Deck Jerk Guy, have you ever had jock itch?
Bro, I'd have to be a jock to have the itch, right? And that's never been a problem. So
all right, last up.
Although that's targeted to me.
If this team went last up from the Upper Deck Jerk Guy, if this team gets 6 wins, is that a success? How about 5 wins, but one of them is against Ann Arbor? 5 wins is not enough.
5 is not. I'm not even. Winning against Michigan is nice because you get to throw it in their face, but it's not enough for a total.
Remember how we spent a lot of time talking about how this team is inconsistent and how infuriating that is? That means they need to practice.
Yeah.
That bowl game matters a lot.
I don't think anything less than 8 wins is ever a success. So I would say Upper Deck Jerk Guy, 6 wins is acceptable under the circumstances.
That's right.
5 wins is not.
But if we get to 7, which you just counted off games that's possible, that BC game is going to infuriate me.
Great. Yeah. Killer.
So anyway,
absolutely killer.
With that, Greg, enjoy your bye week. Go Green.
Enjoy your week working in tech, Michael Jones.
I hate you